We are a go. Guys, fountain drink problems again. The gas station I frequent regularly is out of lids. And I mean, they've been out of lids for like 2 weeks. How hard is it to get lids? They need a new supplier. So in the interim, you have to use their lids to like their big frosty concoction. So I've got this domed thing going on, which the problem is your straw barely pokes. It's terrible. I can hardly deal with it. So let's get serious. Let's do our update. Today is Monday, July the 15th. We don't do politics here, but of course, big unfortunate thing happened over the weekend when there was an attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. We're not going to get into partisan politics, but I did want to share some reactions from various rock stars whom I respect. Whether or not you agree, disagree politically, whatever, that's not the point here. I just wanted to call out my respect for the likes of Paul Stanley and Dee Snider, especially Dee Snider, who is not a Trump supporter. And yet Dee had a very powerful message where he said, it doesn't matter if you don't like the other party. You can't try to assassinate people. It's wrong, right? Paul Stanley's message was the same. Ted Nugent, Kid Rock, who of course are Trump supporters, they chimed in. But for the most part, the rockers that chimed in all said the same thing. I think we're all on the same page here. That's not how you handle political differences. Okay. If you do that, obviously you're a whack job, dork chop, jerk nozzle, right? Clearly. But if you condone that, you're a dork chop, dork weasel idiot as well. I have to say I was super disappointed in Tenacious D. I don't know if you saw that, where Kyle Fat, whatever his name is, where he made this snip about he wished they wouldn't have missed Trump. What an idiot. What an idiot loser. And anyone who believes that is an idiot loser. If the roles were reversed, I'd say the same thing, right? If you're okay with someone being shot at and then you joke about it, you're an a-hole. Tenacious D, you guys are a-holes, okay? I used to think you were kind of funny. I mean, you haven't been funny for about 10 years, but at least 10 years ago, you were kind of funny. Now you're just sick. Idiots. All right, now let's get into the actual update here. Sammy Hagar has kicked off his Best of Both Worlds or Best of All Worlds tour last night. Started in West Palm Beach. Actually, I think it started Friday night. I might be a day off. 21 song set packed with Van Halen classics. The footage I've seen, it looks really good, man. Sammy sounds good. Joe is just incredible. Looks like a great show. If you have a chance to see it, you should do it. Of course, Sammy's there, Michael Anthony, Joe Satriani, Jason Bonham on drums. It's really cool. You know how Alex had the three or I think 4 toms in his drum kit. I think I could have seen it wrong. It looked like Jason's set has 3, not toms, kick drums. It looks like Jason said had 3 kick drums. Did I see that wrong, or does it have 4 like Alex did? But anyways, the skins on his bass drums are pictures of his dad, which is pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. They're also added by multi-instrumentalist Rye Thistlethwaite, who is playing keyboards and various percussion things. So it's cool. 12 of the 23 songs played on the opening night came from Hagar's decade-long stint as Van Halen's frontman. And then they also played 3 Roth-era tunes. I know they played Ain't Talking About Love, which Michael sang, actually. They played Panama, which Sammy sings. And I bet the other one was Jump. I bet they did Jump because I think Sammy sang both of those. I know that as I've seen him over the years with Sammy, they would occasionally do Somebody Get Me a Doctor and have Mike sing that. I don't think they did this. And they did some of Sammy's solo stuff. Of course, Only One Way to Rock. They probably did Can't Drive 55, I'm guessing. So probably did heavy metal. I don't know what other Sam songs they would have done. But they also did Satch Boogie. So they did a Satriani solo piece as well. And of course, opening for them was Loverboy. Don't laugh. Loverboy puts on a great show. They still do. They don't look like they did in 1983, but they still sound pretty dang good. I've seen them like 8 times in the last 20 years, and they still sound really good. So great show. If that rolls into your neck of the woods, you definitely want to see it. Okay, I'm gonna pause really quick and run and shut my door because it's about to get noisy. So just chat amongst yourselves. Be right back. I mean, it's a live broadcast. What are you going to do? I had to run up and shut the door. Speaking of Van Halen, guys, I have to be real careful when I say what I'm about to say. Hi, Bruce. Bruce is checking in. Long time no see, my friend. Thank you, Bruce. Any of you can chime in if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or X. Love to hear from you. Check in just like Bruce did. I got to be careful when I say this. Lives are complicated, right? If you're a famous person, it's complicated for anyone. But you think of a figure like Eddie Van Halen, who we all loved. I love Eddie Van Halen. One of my heroes. Was very sad when he died. But what you find out is that even the people you idolize, they make mistakes, right? We're all human. They make mistakes. Eddie Van Halen was no different. And I'm only bringing that up because here's a story that I'm going to share. This was on Ultimate Classic Rock. I'd never heard this story before. I saw the ill-fated 2004 Van Halen reunion tour in Spokane, Washington. And I think I've talked about how sad it was to see how far Eddie had fallen. He was at a bad time, probably at the height of his addictions at that time. He looked terrible. His playing was not good. His solo spot was ridiculous. He literally laid on the floor and rolled around and let his guitar feedback for like 3 minutes. It was sad. Well, on that same tour, apparently, and we didn't know at the time, but they were at each other's throats, right? The band was not getting along. Mikey and Sam had their dressing rooms completely away from wherever Eddie was. And apparently Alex would just show up right before the gig to play and then leave. He didn't want any of the drama. But Eddie's there. Wolfgang was a little kid, 10 or 12 at the time. And he apparently rode his scooter all over at the arenas and all. Probably fun for a 12-year-old to go on tour with your dad. Valerie Bertinelli was there. But Barry Kirch, who's the drummer in Shinedown, he told Ultimate Classic Rock about their experience opening for Van Halen. And he said, it was one of the most amazing times of my life. It was unbelievable. This was actually him talking to the Paltrow cast with Darren Paltrowitz, but being reported by Ultimate Classic Rock. He said, as much as those guys hated each other at that moment in time, they were so sweet to all of us. He said that Eddie had taken a really big liking to Shinedown singer Brent Smith. And the drummers noted that Eddie was a cigarette in his mouth, bottle of wine in one hand, guitar on 24/7. That's how he lived. He'd kick open our dressing room door, start talking, teach how he did something on guitar. Wolfie was still riding a scooter up and down the hallways. He was like 10, and Valerie was there taking care and everything. So I got to meet all that. She's the sweetest. Wolfie was a good kid. And then he said, you never saw Alex. He would just show up to do the gig, get out. He didn't want to be part of the drama. He said, but I did get to sit behind his drum set, which was awesome. And then he talks about how they just kept things separate, right? And they didn't get along. He says this. He said Sammy and Michael had their own little bar side stage. They're like, hey man, anytime during the show, come on over and have a few drinks with us. So we go into their little bar watching Van Halen play. Oh my God, I'm on tour with Van Halen, having a drink with Sammy and Michael while they're playing. He said he felt like a little kid. And then he said Sammy would rate our shows by leaving a bottle of tequila in our room. If it was a crappy show that we did, he gave us the basic model. If it was a good show, he'd give us the good stuff. So every night, Sammy would leave a bottle of tequila for them. And he says, here's the part that I was getting to. On stage, you couldn't really tell that they hated each other, but occasionally you could. There was one night Sammy was singing, and I don't know why Eddie was pissed at him, but he was. Eddie comes over and just kicks him as hard as he can, square in the nuts while he's singing. Ouch. So, yeah. Here, Bruce chimes in. Joe is worthy of playing EVH. That is my number one performance interest tomorrow night in Atlanta. Hoping for a surprise guest tomorrow night. Okay, Bruce, you'll have to let us know how that turns out. Thanks for checking in. Marlon also checking in. Hi, Marlon. Good to see you, my friend. Haven't seen you in a long time, and that's my fault, obviously, because I haven't been doing the updates. But where was my point? Oh, my point is, since Eddie's passing, we're realizing that, and it's not just stories like this. There were lots of stories where Ed, and I think a lot of it, you could probably blame on his substance abuse or whatever. He didn't treat people well. There were several accounts of him just not being nice to people. And that's always kind of disappointing when you hear that about one of your idols. And he's still one of my idols. I still love him, right? But you kind of just hear more and more about things like this. The whole thing with Fred Durst, where he drives over with a machine gun on his Jeep and is threatening. I mean, it's just crazy stuff where he's kind of mean to some people. So anyways, it's always kind of sad when you find out that the people you've idolized are in fact just mere mortals and they make mistakes. So speaking of live music, the Black Crowes have announced more tour dates for their Happiness Bastards tour. The new shows, titled Happiness Bastards Tour, The Reprise, follow a run of dates that concluded last month after starting in April. After the release of their latest album, Happiness Bastards. Happiness Bastards, by the way, my friend Steve, JR, who is my co-host when we do the podcast, his brother Steve texted me and said, hey, dude, have you heard the new Black Crowes? And I hadn't. To be honest, they kind of had fallen off my radar. So a few months ago, he recommended I check that out, and I did. And it was really good. Really good. And I'm going to put up a quote here from Marlon. Blackmore was similarly a jerk. I was talking about Eddie. And the reason I popped it up here is Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes kind of had that reputation too of being a jerk. I don't know the guy personally, right? But we find out that these famous rock stars are human, and sometimes they can be jerks. But here's the thing, guys, and here's the part I wanted to say this about this new album anyways. There's an interview with Chris and his brother. What's his brother's name? It's Chris and whatever. I can't remember his name right now. But the two Robinson brothers, right? It's Chris and Rich, okay? They have not spoken in years. They hadn't gotten along, and they just, they were pampered rock stars. There's this interview with them on Stern from just a few months ago, and this happens to all of us, hopefully, eventually, is they don't seem like the pampered rock stars anymore. I think they've matured and they don't come across as jerks anymore. So that's good news. And Chris even kind of acknowledged that. He's like, I had to be a better person, and he kind of talks about that. So anyways, I just want to throw this out there. The new Black Crowes album is awesome, and they seem to be in a better space. They seem to be better dudes than they used to be, which I'm happy to hear. I loved the early first couple Black Crowes albums. Just awesome. In fact, we play a lot of Black Crowes on CGR radio. So you should check it out. Go to classicguitarrock.com, click on that radio button. You can listen to the station 24/7. But anyways, they're adding a bunch of new dates starting in September 28th in Cincinnati, and they'll run clear through February. So if you have a chance to go out and see the Happiness Bastards tour, what are you waiting for? You should do it. This is from Bruce. I don't know about the white cuffed lady knickers Sammy was wearing in the clips I've seen. Kind of like the Steven Tyler dude looking like an old lady. I hadn't noticed that, Bruce. Now I got to go back and watch the videos. Okay. More live music news here. Due to overwhelming demand, the Eagles have added 4 more dates to their upcoming residency at the Sphere in Las Vegas. Guys, I'm sure you're aware of the Sphere, right? You see this big dome. Looks a lot like the top of my fountain drink here that sits in the middle of Las Vegas. And it's wild. When you see video of it, it doesn't look real. That's crazy because the whole thing glows and like they put back. I can't even describe it. You just got to go and put in video of the Las Vegas Sphere. It's amazing. And so they do shows there now. U2 did one. The Eagles have done it. Other people have done it. I can't remember who else done it. From now on, this will be my Sphere cup. But by popular demand, they've added more. The new dates are January 17th, 18th, 24th, and 25th. Tickets will start at $175 and will reflect all-in pricing. I don't know what that means. I should, but what does all-in pricing mean? Probably means they'll magically, you think you're paying $175 and it turns into $875, something like that. I don't know how it works. No word yet if Henley will be lip syncing at these shows. We'll see. This was cool to see over the weekend. Bruce Dickinson and Paul Di'Anno, they met for the first time ever on the 13th. First time ever. I didn't know that. I didn't know they had never met. Paul Di'Anno, of course, on the first 2 albums, the Iron Maiden album, the Killers album, and then he's on the EP, right? The Made in Japan EP. Paul Di'Anno on those albums. Very different style than Bruce. I think to many of us, I mean, there's a small, rabid group that are Paul Di'Anno. I mean, we're all Paul Di'Anno fans, but there's not the same Paul versus Bruce thing like you'll hear with Sammy and Dave or Brian and Bon, right? But there is a small vocal minority that is all about Di'Anno. They like the Di'Anno stuff best. Personally, I prefer Bruce, but I like the early stuff too. Paul Di'Anno, the leader of the band, is really Steve Harris. And Paul and Steve were not getting along after Killers. And basically, they fired Paul and they brought in Bruce. And Bruce has been there. He left for a while, but then came back. But Bruce is Iron Maiden. I mean, he really is. When you think about Iron, you think of Iron Maiden, you think of Bruce. Well, the two of them got together. And apparently you can watch this video. It's just kind of a short video. And you kind of, they're the same age. I think Paul's a year older. Paul's 66 and Bruce is 65, but they're basically the same age. Years have not been kind to Paul. He has a debilitating condition. He's in a wheelchair, but he's out touring. He has a band, right? He can still sing. And Bruce, obviously Bruce has gotten older too, but Bruce is still healthy and vital and in good shape and can run around and jump around and all of this. So yeah, the years have been much kinder to Bruce than to Paul. A lot of that is lifestyle, I'm sure. I don't think Paul is taking very good care of himself. Bruce has. But it's cool to see the two getting together for the first time. Apparently they had a great conversation. But here's the other part I was not aware of is a few years ago, there was a clip of Paul seeing Steve Harris for the first time. I didn't know they had never talked to the guy after he left. They never talked to him. So Di'Anno reunited with Harris in 2022, marking the first time they'd met since the split. A month later, now Paul needed surgery, and he had a crowdfund thing going on to raise money for the surgery. His fortunes obviously have not been the same as Iron Maiden. You know, he does not make a lot of money. I mean, he tries to do what he can. But here's what's really cool. Iron Maiden had agreed to cover the cost of his surgery. So that was awesome. And Paul says, it was brilliant because I met up with Steve's sister, Linda, first, whom I hadn't seen in about 30 years. And then Steve was amazing. And then Rod as well. Rod, is it Smallwood, whatever the guy's name is, their manager. It was basically Steve and Rod who had canned Paul. So it was awesome that the band paid for his surgery. He said, it's made my whole year, actually. It was fantastic. Now he's got a new album or new band called Warhorse. They've got a 10-track debut album. It comes out on the 19th. So keep an eye on that. That's just a few days away. The new album from Paul Di'Anno. They recently launched a video for the lead track, Here Comes the Night, which I haven't seen yet. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go watch that. Here Comes the Night, Paul Di'Anno and Warhorse. Marlon says, no styrofoam. What the heck, man? Yes, my store doesn't have the styrofoam cups anymore. So you got to drink them faster. It's tough. Bruce says the Black Crowes and Collective Soul are great bands from Atlanta. Yes, they are. Two great bands from Atlanta. Awesome. All right, just one last plug. First of all, thank you guys so much for chiming in. Thank you for all your support. And again, another plug for the radio station. You know, we're slowly but surely getting more folks who are listening. If you're a fan of the great guitar rock of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, check it out. Check it out. It's right on your phone. You can play whenever you go out. And if you're used to listening to music in your car via Spotify or whatever, just go over to our website. Listen to music. I think you'll like it. It's a lot of fun. And we're going to do this all again tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.